Technology is not my friend. Never has been. Just trying to get today's program sent out on the social media. Well, it's not going to happen. But that's not the biggest story of the day. Adam Foote's the biggest story of the day. You know how you've heard me over a few years now probably, and this year as well here at the Nation Network, go on and on and on, droning on. I think I even did it yesterday with Wyshynski. About there's not enough defensive defensemen in the Hockey Hall of Fame, and if there was, Adam Foote would be in there. Adam Foote's a head coach in the NHL now. Congratulations to the Vancouver Canucks. Congratulations to Adam Foote. He is now the newly minted bench boss of the Vancouver Canucks. I don't know how, just a quick thought here, and we'll get into this a little bit more with Pete Blackburn from What Chaos, and also Steven Ellis, who stops by. We'll talk about a lot of things with Steven. World Championships, Finlandian hockey. Is that a word, Finlandian? Finnish, there we go. Hockey players running roughshod all over the Winnipeg Jets. And we'll also talk about the upcoming NHL draft with Steven. In the meantime, it doesn't sound like the Vancouver Canucks cast a huge net to try to get in as many candidates as possible. And it seemed like quite quickly, like really quickly, they drilled down to a couple of internal candidates. Adam Foote, who obviously got the job today officially, and also Manny Malhotra of Abbotsford. So congratulations to Adam Foote, and the Vancouver Canucks can now move on and do other business. And, you know, it is interesting. And, Zach, I'm not sure if you have the clip ready. Johnny Lazarus tweeted this one out, and it's Quinn Hughes. Back in February on TNT, the Vancouver Canucks were playing, and he was interviewed about Adam Foote specifically and what he brings to the bench. Not that I'm saying that everything the Vancouver Canucks are doing is just all about keeping Quinn Hughes, but how many times have we talked about Operation Keep Quinn Hughes and keep Quinn Hughes happy and keep him in Vancouver? Zach, I don't know. Do you have the clip? Can we play that? It's a really interesting couple of comments here from Quinn Hughes. Do we have it?
I'm having a problem with the clip. You give me 30 seconds here and I'll get it for you.
How about this? I'll give you 30 seconds. Let's do the daily outline and let people know what's coming up on the program today. Shall we? While we get this Quinn Hughes clip queued up here. Daily outline powered by FanDuel. Make every moment more. I got to stop calling audibles on Zach like this. He's busy enough. Daily outline presented by FanDuel. Make every moment more with North America's #1 sportsbook. Our friends, our presenters at FanDuel. And coming up on the program today, a couple of special guests. Pete Blackburn will stop by from the very excellent What Chaos podcast, Steven Ellis from Daily Faceoff. We're going to play some Jim Rutherford clips. Now, this just came out today. This was an interview that Stephen Brunt did with the president of hockey operations for the Vancouver Canucks, I believe last week. I listened to it this afternoon. It's available wherever you get your podcasts, and it's available on our Daily Faceoff YouTube channel as well. It's excellent. We're going to play a couple of the notable clips from this one. Some about Jim with the Vancouver Canucks this year, Jim with the Pittsburgh Penguins and why he left, and then the last salvo of the interview is kind of interesting too. Let's just say Jim is a very self-aware person, and you'll understand what I'm talking about when we get to the third clip. We'll play for you in a couple of moments. Dallas Stars take a commanding 3-2 lead. They could ice the Winnipeg Jets in Manitoba, and it's another Finn this time. It's not Rantanen, it's Granlund. And one of the questions we wonder about is, are the Dallas Stars just shooting short side high? You know, I got a note from someone today sort of indicating that I'm not sure if this is what they're doing, but it's more than just a coincidence. 2v1 goal short side, third goal short side after Duchesne ripped one off the post. Short side. Is that the Dallas book on Connor Hellebuck? Discuss amongst yourselves. The coaching carousel we'll get into as well, and tonight's games as well, which have a lot to do with our country here in Canada. The Toronto Maple Leafs facing off against the Florida Panthers, and also the Edmonton Oilers taking on the Vegas Golden Knights tonight. Could say bye-bye to Vegas. In the meantime, do we have that clip of Quinn Hughes talking about Adam Foote as tweeted earlier from Johnny Lazarus, Zach?
Yes, we do.
Okay, let's fire. Here's Quinn Hughes from February talking about the guy who's now his coach.
There's a lot of coaches out there that scream and yell, and they want to, bully their players, intimidate their players. And this is a guy that I would say coaches his defensemen, coaches his players like he'd want his kids coached. And then on top of that, with all the experience he has, and, Rick said it before, he doesn't, think of himself as a coach. He thinks of himself as a teacher, and he's teaching us. And footy and Rick's job is to win games, but also it's to make everyone a better player. And, you want to be a better player in March than you were September, and then hopefully a better team as well. And I think it's not just process, results-based wins and losses. It's trying to make people, better players. And over the course of my 3 years with these guys, my game's kind of taken off here, and that's a big part to them. So yeah.
Awesome. Well said.
Okay, so we know that Quinn Hughes was a big fan of Rick Tocchet, also a big fan of Adam Foote as well, and he is now officially the head coach of the Vancouver Canucks. Speaking of the Vancouver Canucks, Jim Rutherford, president of hockey operations for the Canucks, in conversation last week with Stephen Brunt. This is part of the Up Close podcast, video available at our Daily Faceoff YouTube channel. That is out now. All for the podcast of Up Close, available on all platforms now, wherever you get your podcasts. Really encourage you to listen or watch this one. As we've talked about before, if you ask Jim Rutherford a question, he'll give you an answer. It's sometimes he's blunt, but he always tries to be as honest as he can. And he's never met a microphone that he didn't like. He's kind of a throwback in that way, folks. Like I mentioned on the podcast last week, this is kind of like Jim Rutherford's kind of a throwback. People talk like this all the time in the 70s and 80s. And then media managers came along and said, like, no, here are the things you can't say. Anyway, Stephen Brunt sitting down with Jim Rutherford at the President's Club at Rogers Arena in Vancouver, talking about his early years in hockey, transitioning from player to executive, working for 3 distinct owners, some of the challenges in Vancouver, and some of the challenges in managing superstars. We're going to play 3 clips here. This is really good stuff. Here's Jim Rutherford in conversation with Stephen Brunt on some of the challenges from this season early on in Vancouver, from up close.
Man, we've had a lot of issues to deal with. It hasn't been fun at times, but I continue to hang in there, and I'm disappointed. I take full responsibility for last year, the disappointment that everybody has. We were on the right track the season before last, and if we didn't have the major issue to deal with that really tore the dressing room apart the first half of the season, I think we would still be on the right track. But now we've had to go from a contender a year ago to a team in transition. I like where our goaltending's at. I like where our defense is at. Now, hopefully, we have good fortune this summer and we fix our forwards, and then we can get back to where we'd like to be.
Interesting that Rutherford himself sort of dives on the sword here, falls on the grenade, however you want to put it, for last season, taking full responsibility for everything that happened, which really I don't necessarily just think is about what happened this past season. Nothing exists in a vacuum, either in hockey or in real life. Some of the seeds of what we saw this season were planted as far back as prioritizing the JT Miller contract over Bo Horvat and subsequently trading Bo Horvat to the New York Islanders. Interesting that Rutherford, and really no surprise, takes full responsibility for it. Also, of particular interest here, and there's a couple of things in this next clip. Now, the background on this clip is, when Rutherford left Pittsburgh, it was sort of right after COVID. I'm not sure if we have it in the clip, but he does go into great lengths. I listened to the podcast this afternoon talking about how essentially he didn't leave his house for 11 months and how much that affected him and how much that affected not just affected him physically, and there was a lot of fear about at Jim's age COVID, but also how it affected him mentally. But here is Jim Rutherford on how he left the Pittsburgh Penguins initially. Here's Rutherford.
You had great success there. You won again. You won twice. And then you left. Why was it time to go?
I don't know if it was time to go if there wasn't COVID, but I was, at my age, I was very scared when COVID came. Fortunately, we lived on a 5-acre lot and we had space at our house, but my son didn't go to school. He didn't play hockey. He homeschooled. We had everything delivered to our house. We never left our property for 11 months. And it really, really affected me mentally. And as we were getting closer to getting back playing, there were conversations, and there was a conversation that, quite frankly, I didn't handle very well. But it was because of my state of mind, and I just said, I can't do this anymore. And that was kind of it.
You know, that's interesting. We've heard, and I don't know what the conversation was over, whether it was about a player or a situation or a chain of command. I've heard about the conversation that Rutherford is referring to. But to me, and maybe someone can point where it's already been out there, I don't think I've ever heard Rutherford say that it was because of his mental state at that point that he had that type of conversation with whomever he had that conversation with. And the last clip we'll play for you here, and we're going to give way to Pete Blackburn here in a couple of seconds from What Chaos. An interesting question from Steven Brunt, and it's a simple one too. How do you know when the job is done in Vancouver? Here's Rutherford. Sometimes
it's for health reasons. Fortunately, I am very healthy. I believe I am. It may just get to the point where I realize that I don't have enough to offer to help a team win. That may be a decision. It may get to the point that I just don't have the energy to do it anymore. And the owner has every right to come and tell me today that he doesn't want me, and if he did that, there'd be no hard feelings.
The whole interview's like this. First of all, Jim's a great guest, as we've talked about before, incapable of giving anything other than an honest answer, whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not, and another masterful job as well by Steven Brunt. Rutherford opens up about his career, managing superstars, and challenges in Vancouver. By the way, the stuff about managing superstars, and a lot of it is around Sidney Crosby specifically, is fascinating. You can watch this on our Daily Faceoff YouTube channel, out now, or you can listen to it wherever you get your podcasts. Up close with Steven Brunt, this week's guest, Jim Rutherford, President of Hockey Operations for the Vancouver Canucks. And with that, we'll bring aboard one of our star guests of the day. No stranger to this property, no stranger to hockey podcasting, no stranger to all fans of the excellent What Chaos podcast. He is Pete Blackburn, and he joins me now. Hello, Pete. And I know it's early and this thing has just come out, but I really want to encourage you to listen to and watch, if you can, the Jim Rutherford interview with Steven Brunt. And by the end, Jim's kind of like, if they fire me, they fire me.
Listen, at this point, if you put a microphone in front of Jim Rutherford, I am there, regardless of the price of admission, because every time he sits behind a microphone, there's something that comes out of it. And you're right. Like, you can't keep him from the truth, and whether or not that hurts him or hurts the team or, is just straight up honest, it's always entertaining.
I've made this point before, like right, like actually in front of me, but behind this camera here in my basement, I've got boxes upon boxes of old hockey news magazines. And every couple of weeks, I'll just grab a couple and flip through. And Pete, like, I'm always stunned. And maybe I'll just do this in the summer in the dog days of the podcast. I'll just read old hockey news magazines to people and call it a show. But I'm always stunned at how people talked then and how open they were, versus the very controlled corporate media speak that comes out of everybody right now, except for Jim Rutherford, who is a complete throwback to this era of 1960s, 1970s hockey news magazines where, guys will talk about like, oh yeah, this guy's a clubhouse lawyer. Yeah, we couldn't wait to get this guy out. Or, this guy may have a little bit of a drinking problem here. Like, it's just spectacular how people used to talk about other people in hockey, and it doesn't exist anymore outside of the office at Rogers Arena in Vancouver.
Yeah, and I mean, as two guys who do a daily hockey show, boy, it's a beautiful thing.
Oh, gift.
When somebody just lets a rip, and as the kids say these days, yapping. He's out there yapping, and it's great for us.
Yep.
I understand why it would cause some headaches for, maybe a Quinn Hughes or two here and there. But, like I'll take it every day of the week to get a guy like that who's just like, and we always ask for transparency, whether it's officiating or front offices, head coaches, just give us transparency. Let us not have to ask the questions that you're sort of dancing around. You don't get any of that with Jim Rutherford, and I think it's great.
Yep, absolutely. You mentioned Quinn Hughes a second ago, and Johnny Lazarus tweeted out an interview that Quinn, and we just played it a couple of seconds before he came on, an interview that Quinn Hughes gave on TNT. Just a bench interview, talking to the guys in studio and talking about Adam Foote and talking about Rick Tocchet. Now, Adam Foote today has the magic wand waved over his head. He's the new head coach of the Vancouver Canucks. Cynically, you could look at it and say it's another chapter in Operation Keep Quinn Hughes Happy and Keep Quinn Hughes Here. It was pretty quickly that the Vancouver Canucks got to a very tight pool of candidates. All internal, or should I say both internal, Malhotra and Foote. Not to say they didn't talk to other people, but they did. But they got down to this pair of candidates really quickly. How did you look at the Adam Foote signing today? New head coach, Vancouver Canucks. Someone who, by the way, I always maintain, because I don't put defensive defenseman in the Hall of Fame, belongs in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Anyhow, floor is yours, Pete.
Yeah, I mean, my first takeaway, and Zach, your producer, can attest to this because he was in our show chat. My first takeaway was like, this screams the Vancouver Canucks just saying, "Hey, it's okay. We got our new girlfriend first." As soon as the Rick Tocchet rumors come out, the reports that he's signing in Philadelphia, they say, "Oh no, we got our head coach first.
Nope.
We're happy. Don't worry. I'm glad you found somebody, but we also found somebody, and we're moving on, happy with our lives." So beyond that.
And she was here all along, and she was
right.
She was right there the whole time.
Yeah. How did I not see this? How did I not see how in love I was with this person before 2 weeks ago? But like other than that, the only other takeaway for me was, Quinn Hughes must like this guy, and obviously 3 seconds later we get the TNT clip coming out saying how much he loves him. But like, and you say cynically, this is a move to keep Quinn Hughes here. I say like, why not do the move that keeps Quinn Hughes there? Do everything you possibly can to keep Quinn Hughes in Vancouver, especially after what all has happened so far this offseason, which seems to only be pushing him out the door.
But the thing about it, though, is like, you think of St. Jude, the patron saint of lost causes. Like, you're competing against family. Like, you're competing against blood. You can bring in anybody you want. Like, you can bring in Quinn Hughes's hockey idol growing up, to take him out on weekends to the Roxy. It doesn't really matter, doesn't it? Like, does it not feel like that situation is marching towards an inevitability that we all see coming?
Listen, you might be right, but you got to go down swinging. You got to give yourselves the best chance you possibly can. If it means just bringing in the guy that he likes, absolutely go for it. Like, even when Knobloch was hired in Edmonton, and I know Chris Knobloch, like, that's doing a disservice to Chris Knobloch and how ready he was to be an NHL head coach. But like, people were saying, this is McDavid's guy. They're just bringing in McDavid's guy. You know what? Hand the franchise to Connor McDavid if you're the Edmonton Oilers. Who's criticizing you for that? He's one of the few guys that is absolutely worth doing that for, and I think that Quinn Hughes is in the same boat.
As much as Knobloch too might be a McDavid guy, I remember when I was at I was having a conversation I was standing with Colby Armstrong, and we're talking to Jeff Jackson, who then was an agent and was Connor's agent. So before he got the CEO job with the Oilers. And the guy he kept coming back to was Knobloch. He's like, this guy's coaching in the NHL one day. This guy's coaching in the NHL one day. And as much as he is like, quote unquote, Connor's guy, Jeff Jackson has been a massive supporter of Knobloch going back some ways. I want to get to Edmonton here in a couple of seconds, but coaching carousel is interesting right now. Boston's still open. Very much wondering about Marco Sturm. Very wondering about Jay Woodcroft. Do you have a spidey sense on, how about this? Do you have a spidey sense on what Boston wants? And did Boston want Tocchet?
I think Boston wanted Tocchet just because he was the sexiest name out there. I don't know if I was as sold on Tocchet being the guy, but ultimately, there's not a lot of like hunger for a specific person here, and I think it's largely because there's a ton of uncertainty about where the Bruins even are and what their approach is going to be when it comes to reassembling the next era of this team. Like, it's very difficult to project what their timeline is right now. And part of that is we don't know the coach. Part of it is we don't really know the roster. And so at some point, the pieces are going to have to fall into place. But if you're trying to project what kind of coach is right for the Bruins, it's almost impossible to tell right now because you don't know what the team is.
Although, don't you get the feeling, though, that the whole thing is going to be still centered around Swayman, McAvoy, Pasternak? Like, we're not talking about like the one thing with the Vancouver Canucks over the past few years, despite the success last year, where they had everything work together, most namely health for the entire team, the entire season. We'd look at the Vancouver Canucks and we'd say like, okay, so whose timeline is this on? Right? I think that's what you have. I think you pointed out the right thing. You always have to ask yourself about teams, whose timeline are they doing this on? But with Boston, I kind of look at it and say they're doing it on the same timeline they've had for the last little while. They're just hoping that it was, the contract situation that scuttled Swayman last year. It was health that scotched Charlie McAvoy. And we get those two things right to kick off this season with David Pasternak. Those are the guys we're building this all around. I don't think anyone thinks that whoever Boston drafts at 7 is going to walk into the NHL and help. I don't think anybody from this draft is walking into the NHL next season, and that includes Matthew Schaefer, as great as he may be. I don't think anyone's walking into the NHL. I think it's a team that's looking trades and looking free agents and saying, like, we're not that far from being right back in this because we have key players at key positions here, and they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, and if that's the mentality, I think they have to lean somebody who prioritizes the back end and really leans into a defensive system because, if you're trying to get back to being a playoff team as quick as possible, you have to play to your strengths right now. And the Bruins, their strengths clearly lie on the blue line with some of the pillars that they have there with Charlie McAvoy, Hampus Lindholm, whether you want to call Nikita Zadorov a pillar or not. Some people would say a different word that begins with a P. But I think that, especially if you're keeping Jeremy Swayman and you're locking him into your future, you have to make sure you're defending well in front of him to maximize the dollar value that you handed out to him. So I think that's probably their big priority if they want to be competitive as soon as possible.
Which I want to transition to games here in a sec. Of all the teams that have candidacy openings here, Chicago, Seattle, just mentioned Boston a second ago, who intrigues you the most? Like, is there one that you're like, I just can't figure this one out. I can't get my head around what direction they're going to go here. Like, to me, the answer is Chicago, because it seemed as if, like, the moment that David Carl said, I'm going back to Denver, it was like, okay, back to the drawing board here. But how about you?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And like, I'm not an insider by any means. You're more well-connected than I am. But it did feel like everything that was coming out felt like the Blackhawks were putting all their eggs in the David Carl basket. And then David Carl said, thanks, but no thanks. And you kind of go back to the drawing board. Am I wrong about that?
No, I'll tell you what, going back to the OHL Cup is an interesting tournament that runs here in Toronto at Scotiabank Pond. It's all the best U16 teams from all over the province. And man, you would not believe the amount of college scouts and college personnel that was there for the there's always some, but it was just like college everywhere. And so a lot of the conversation was around, is Dave Hackstall going to go back to North Dakota? The answer, as we find out now, is no. And the other is David Carl finally leaving Denver, and how much is Chicago going to pay him? It was almost like everyone that was talking was saying like, oh yeah, he's leaving Denver, he's going to Chicago. Is it going to be 4 times 4 times 5? What is it going to be? We knew that David Carl wanted life-changing money to leave. The thing that is interesting to me is Chicago's one of those teams that can offer life-changing money. That's why I'm curious, like, why didn't it work with David Carl in Chicago? We may never know the answer, but that one's the weird one for me. Like, because everybody was like, oh, this one's the layup. David Carl, Chicago, done.
Right. Money, market,
All of it.
great young players, enough of a runway where you can grow and learn and the pressure's not on you immediately. I thought he was for sure going to end up in Chicago. Obviously, that doesn't happen. I still think Chicago is a destination for all of those reasons, especially like that team. The pressure is on that team to win sooner rather than later, and that means that they're going to start putting together, you would hope, a better roster in the years coming and up ahead. Because you look at Connor Bedard and you want to maximize what you got there and keep him in good spirits. So I think there is pressure on them, but like as a coach, you kind of want that. And so I still think that's a very, very intriguing spot. I also think that like Boston is an intriguing spot, and maybe I'm a little biased, but like it is not an unattractive job, regardless of the circumstances that they're in right now. It's still a major market with good players.
Oh, this is not a scorched earth rebuild, and you're not going to go through like an agonizing time. Like ask Kyle Davidson what this is like, right? I mean, I even asked, Montreal, Philadelphia, San Jose. Like it's so painful. This isn't like other sports. We add a couple of pieces and boom, you're back in the playoffs. Man, the scorched earth rebuilds are hard for teams, and they last a long. How many rebuilds have the Buffalo Sabres gone through? How many rebuilds have the Buffalo Sabres gone through, Pete Blackburn? If you want to talk about like ask Detroit how painful rebuilds are as well. Let me get to Dallas, Winnipeg last night. The Finns are riding high with the Dallas Stars, whether it's Mikko Rantanen with the hat trick, and yesterday Granlund with the hat trick. And someone sent me an interesting text today. Someone who pays close attention to this series for a very specific reason. He said, is it just me, or is Dallas shooting short side high every single time on Connor Hellebuck? Duchesne ripped one off the pipe, goals 1 and 3 last night, or short side high on Connor Hellebuck. Like, it seems like that's Dallas's book here. And the other thing that this person pointed out to me is he wonders if Pete DeBoer goes 11-7 again, because he loves double shifting Rantanen. It can confuse Scott Arniel for matchups, and it also makes sure that Miro Heiskanen doesn't have to jump right back in with 20 minutes plus. Your thoughts on all of that?
Yeah, no, I think that's, the short side high thing, sure. At some point, just shooting anywhere on Connor Hellebuck was working. I think that he is certainly kind of brought it back to earth a little bit in a positive way. Like, he has not been the reason why Winnipeg is losing this series. I think that he's one of the reasons, but he's not the reason, and that is a step forward for Hellebuck. I also agree, like 11-7 makes too much sense for Dallas at this point, especially with the Miro of it all. Like, protect the asset as much as you can, especially if you've got an opportunity to get a win and then get some rest moving forward. So I think that all makes sense in my book. Okay,
so here's what I like about the Dallas Stars. I love teams that explode myths, right? So, I'm a firm believer, Pete, and there's no one way to make a winner. There are some teams that are built through free agency. There are some teams that are built through first-round draft picks, and there's teams like, Tampa Bay Lightning will rip off a couple of Stanley Cups, and, Stamkos was a first-rounder, and Hedman was a first-rounder, and after that, there were none in the lineup at all. Like, I don't think there's one specific way. Some teams load up at deadline. Some say, we're just going to tweak and add a tiny little piece here. I'm always a guy saying, whoa. There's not one way to do this. There's a lot of different ways to be successful in hockey. You should probably have a hot goaltender come playoff time. That certainly helps. But again, look at 2010 with, Antti Niemi and Michael Leighton. So there's not one way to do this. And as we keep saying, like, don't load up at deadline. It affects the chemistry. You don't want to do this. Here's the Dallas Stars saying, we're getting Mikko Rantanen, and we're going to get Michael Granlund. And before that, we're going to try to get, Rasmus Anderson. We're going to try to get Nazem Kadri. That's why I love Dallas, because as everyone says, it should be tweak deadline, not trade deadline. they go out and land the whopper, and they landed a big one even before that in Granlund. Both have paid off in spades. What do you see with the Dallas Stars?
What I see, and like my takeaway from Dallas, is that I should just stop watching hockey in the final month of the regular season, or at least have no like weight on what I see in the final weight of the regular season when it comes to projecting the playoffs, because everybody, and I feel like I'm saying everybody, was so low on Dallas and was basically writing their death certificate heading into that first round series against Colorado. And sure, like maybe you can make the argument one player dragged them across the finish line, which was Mikko Rantanen. But even still, like, this is a team where you say if they manage to get out of the first round, we've seen enough from them over the past couple of years that like they've got some juice, and they're only going to get stronger if they get Jason Robertson back, if they get Mira Heiskanen back. Like, all of this makes sense now. It made no sense 3-4 weeks ago, and I feel like such an idiot for letting the final month of the season talk me out of the Dallas Stars. So
then how do you feel about the Buffalo Sabres down the stretch, where they look like the 1977 Montreal Canadiens that could not lose a game? Are you saying, because I'm with you, like, down, especially for teams that are just playing those empty calorie games at the end that are out of the playoffs by the time January rolls around, like, I put no stock in any of it. But are you saying the same thing about the Buffalo Sabres? The reverse?
No, but isn't that because that's like so perfectly Buffalo? They lose
totally
13 games in a row in December and their season's over. But then in the final month of the year, when everybody's taking games off, they will charge back and give you a glimmer of hope just to rip it away and rob themselves of lottery balls and things like that, enough to talk you into the fact that there's a little bit of hope heading into next season. That's so perfectly Buffalo.
It really is. Okay, a couple of minutes left with you here. Listen, your co-host, DJ Bean, loves him some Edmonton Oilers. And we know that. And I love nothing more than watch his reaction to big moments, either positive or negative, for the Edmonton Oilers on your watch-alongs. It's fantastic. Where is Pete Blackburn at on the Edmonton Oilers? And I do want to ask you about Corey Perry in a second here too. But just wide brush thoughts on the Oilers playing Vegas tonight.
I mean, it's just like a stunning mind. It's like a stunning social experiment this season for the Edmonton Oilers. I have no idea what they're going to be on any given night. None of this makes sense to me, that like they are still, they're up and cruising in the second round. And I still feel like we have not seen them play their best hockey, maybe outside of game 4, where I felt like they pitched a perfect defensive game and the perfect response game from a game 3 that had you feeling so low about them and their chances, like a horrific parade of breakdowns to lose themselves what could have been a pivotal game 3, and they come out and they give you a perfect game 4. Suddenly Stuart Skinner looks like a viable goalie. It, like, the roller coaster of that team is just absolutely nauseating, because it's so crazy, the swings that you have from one day to the next with them.
It's wild, and I can only imagine what Bean goes through watching this team, because outside of a stretch of 3 weeks in December, they really haven't been a great team, like, at all. There was those 3 weeks where, like, oh man, this is Edmonton, man. These guys now, but you can look at it now and say outside of Ekholm, they're all healthy. Okay, so here's my theory on Corey Perry. Agree, disagree. Corey Perry will not stop playing hockey. One, he's not doing it for the money. That's clear. He can still play. He's real smart. He can play first line. He can play fourth line, everywhere in between. He's just a flat-out good hockey player. I don't believe that Corey Perry is going to stop playing hockey until he wins the Stanley Cup again, because it is the most Corey Perry thing ever for his last image for his haters to be him holding the Stanley Cup. And if Edmonton wins, Corey Perry retires.
Ooh, that's an interesting theory, and I could see it, and I would like it. I honestly don't know if he would hang him up even if he won the Cup this year, just based off of how much he might have left in the tank and how much he likes going to the rink and how much he just lives and breathes it. He lives and breathes it so much that he's willing to fully adjust his game and fully adapt on the fly and become a fourth liner, become a fringe guy. and slide up and down on every given night. Like that guy just lives and breathes puck. If he's got anything left in the tank, I see him running it dry.
So I have this like this visual dream, and I'm waiting for, and it's a total ripoff of freestyle wrestling and weightlifting. So what I love when guys retire, they leave their boots and they walk away. I am waiting for someone when they retire, and this would be perfect Corey Perry. Edmonton wins the Stanley Cup. Corey Perry gets a cup, does his lap, takes his skates off, leaves them at center ice, and walks off. Come on, tell me you're not getting the tingles about something like that. I want a player to take off their skates, leave them at center ice, and walk off the ice. Career done.
You're a sucker for some theater, huh?
Yeah.
You love the drama.
I love it.
Why don't you just fill his skates with worms and have him leave him at center ice? That would be more.
That'd be good
fitting
too.
to me.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's my visual.
So the other thing with Corey Perry that I wonder about is whether or not he will hang them up at some point. Is there a season in which he plays on a bad team that like kind of really, really the vibes are low? He's not enjoying going to the rink any given night. Does he call it quits after that? Because he's been fortunate enough. Like he's been fortunate enough. Like he's lost 1 million Stanley Cups in a row, but he's been on teams that have made it to Stanley Cup Finals, which means that he's having fun.
I just think that it would be, because I'm with you, like if he's going through like a miserable season where like they're out of the playoffs by Christmas, that's like, ugh, all these empty calorie games, and man, maybe you can move me a deadline to someone, please. I don't think that he wants to go through that. I really do think that it would be the most Corey Perry F you to all of his Corey Perry haters for him to exit with the Stanley Cup and go down as, one of the unique players in the game to exit after winning a championship. I just think it'd be the most Corey Perry thing ever. He can keep his skates on if he wants, I guess. I'm just waiting for someone to do it. Pete, tell me, like, you're not a sucker for that kind of stuff. If someone took off their skates at center ice.
Of course I love it. But like you're the kind of guy who loves it in that you'll be reading about it in the hockey news in 15 years, still reminiscing about it. I'll forget that happened because I have the memory of a goldfish.
15 years, I'll be off to the crematorium. Who's kidding who? You're the best, Pete. Continued success with Chaos. It's awesome. It's the best. It's such a great show. Thanks for hopping on with me today. I really appreciate it, pal.
Yeah, appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
There he is, the great Pete Blackburn. From the What Chaos podcast, which you can watch on their YouTube channel every day at noon Eastern, and then download the podcast afterwards. Like, hang on, Zach, have I ever told you about that before? About my leave the skates? I don't know if I call it fantasy, but my leave the skates idea. Leave the skates on the ice. Have I ever told you about that one before?
I don't know. I think you briefly brought something along the lines of that up with Wish.
I just think it would be the coolest visual. He's taking off his skates. And if it became a thing in the NHL, like guys that are about to retire, just take your skates off and leave them on the ice.
Like, just all I can think about with that is Ned from Slapshot. That's what goes through my head when you're like, yeah, it's basically like this guy's gearing down on the ice and like, okay, like I know what you're saying and it's very different, but that's the only thing that I can comprehend.
Little bit different. Just asking a guy to take his skates off. Not like go for a streak at the War Memorial, for crying out loud, Zach. That's not what we're trying to do here. Just try to keep it classy a little bit here.
I do like the worms in the skates though.
Nice
That's
touch.
A good idea.
Nice touch.
Yeah, good touch. Yep. Agreed.
We'll see what happens tonight. We'll see what happens. We have Steven Ellis standing by. See you around?
Yes, we do.
All right, let's do this. Your motorhome or travel trailer isn't just for getaways. It's a moneymaker on wheels, folks. Most RVs, they sit parked in the driveway. With RV Easy, you can rent out your motorhome or travel trailer and earn over $20,000 this year. $20,000 this year. Founded, owned, and operated by Canadians, RV Easy takes care of everything. That includes full insurance coverage provided for every rental. And best of all, you choose when to rent and set your own pricing. List your RV for free today at rvezy.com. That's rvezy.com. RV Easy. Rent your RV, make money easy. With that, we get to the real savant around the shop here, the one and only Steven Ellis from Daily Faceoff, who covers everything hockey all over the globe. And before we get to NHL, I know you love yourself some World Championship hockey. Now, whenever I look at the Worlds, there's one country that I always focus on because nobody celebrates like them. I still maintain that nobody loves hockey like Latvians do, and I don't know that anyone enjoys hockey, whether they win, whether they lose, don't care. I'm just here to watch hockey and celebrate and cheer my team on and cheer on my country. And if we win, that's awesome. And if we lose, well, I guess that's awesome too, because we get to watch hockey. What is so attractive about the World Championship for you? Because to me, World Championships always means I get to see Latvian hockey fans.
Yes. So I've got both games on right now. Right now, Denmark's beating Kazakhstan 2-0 and Sweden's beating Latvia 2-0. So sorry, Latvians. But
they don't care. They're partying. Who cares? They don't care.
You mentioned them in particular, and I think what's interesting about them was it was the year that they got the bronze. I think it was 2 years ago. And third place, first medal they ever had. They basically turned that the whole week into a celebration. Like, I'm pretty sure everyone in the country the next day got a day off. And I remember talking to some Czech prospects of the draft combine. It's like, hey, did you watch the team win the gold last year at the World Championship? And they're like, oh yeah, this was like the greatest party ever. Like, we were partying for 4 or 5 days. And Pasternak, I'm pretty sure, is still celebrating based off of all the videos we saw from that. But you hear that. And Canada could win gold, and they've won gold, I believe, more than pretty much any country outside of Russia and things like that. Mm-hmm. But it won't even be like mentioned in like the news. You would turn on any news channel in Canada, and it's like, cool, they won, that's great, or not at all. When a European team wins, it's a major deal, and for a lot of those teams, it's their chance to show how far they've come. You mentioned Latvia. I remember when I first watched international hockey. I think it was the One World Juniors in 08 or 09 where they lost like 15-0 to Canada. And I thought, I kind of just wrote them off as a joke at the time. You look back now, and every single tournament, it's gotten to the point where they're the favorites in more games than not, especially at the World Championship. And that's pretty cool. And you see what they did at the World Juniors this year, and you see what they're doing at the men's tournament, where every year they've become harder and harder to play against. It's a big deal. And the best way to describe the World Championship is it's a celebration of hockey. It's an opportunity for all the countries of the world, 16 teams, to come play together, spend 2.5 weeks together. Like, you look at the crowds, and for the most part, they're almost sold out every single game. Everyone, like, there's massive crowds of people traveling for this tournament every single year. I would love to do it to a point. I do think it is too long of a tournament, but you get the fun storylines. Today, USA was leading 5-1 early in the second period in Norway. It looked over. Norway forces overtime. Stian Solberg, one of my favorite prospects, gets a hat trick. I could not have seen that happening a year ago. He did not shoot the puck at this tournament a year ago, and he's really figured out how to do that here. So it's just a celebration. Like, I basically will chirp people who hate this tournament and say, if you don't like it, it's because you just don't like fun. And this is
enemy of laughter, enemy of warm and fuzzies. Well, you know what? I mean, you mentioned Solberg a second ago, and he's a first-round pick of the Anaheim Ducks. I remember when he was selected, it was like, this guy hits hard. This guy hits for keeps. What should we know about Solberg? Steen Solberg.
So this is a guy that he's got size. He likes to play physical. He likes to be a good defensive player. But at some point in the season when he was playing the SHL, the top Swedish league this year, he just started to shoot the puck more. Very basic idea, but for a guy that was never his game. He was never an offensive player. And I believe, if I got this correct, at the NHL draft combine, he said he switched to defense only a few years ago because he was at a tournament with his team, and one of his players urinated in the shower.
Yes, correct. And he got suspended. It's a great story.
Yeah, got suspended by the team, and Solberg basically got moved to D to fill a spot, and the rest is history. But he was never an offensive guy even back then. He told me. He said he was more of a, still a defensive style forward. Now you look at this, and he's shooting the puck a lot more. He's way like he's doing that without affecting his physical game. So all the stuff that made him a first round pick a year ago, still there. The size, the physicality, the defensive play. Now he's out there shooting, and he's shooting in smart ways. He's waiting for traffic to form so he could try and find the small openings. He's making these high end passes. He's got 4 goals in this tournament. He's 19 years old. He might be the best defenseman right now. Zach Werenski just joined USA, so that could change. But the way that we're watching him play right now, like, he's out there beating top line NHL defensemen, and that's impressive.
PSA for hockey players out there: don't squirt in the shower. First of all, not nice. Second of all, you might lose your spot. You might just lose your spot. I remember at the combine when he told us that story. Everyone's trying really hard not to laugh until he started laughing, and then everybody just sort of burst out. You know, one final note here on the World Championships, and I always encourage players when they're done their careers. Like, there's a couple of old sayings that live around hockey. One, hockey will never love you back. You may love hockey all you want, but hockey will never love you back. And 2 is use hockey, don't let hockey use you. And I always say to myself, like, you have this wonderful skill that you can play hockey at this high-end level. Use that to go see different parts of the world and have experiences, more than just what you get in North America. If you get a chance to string it out in Europe, wherever, you know, Italy, Switzerland, Germany, Sweden, where, do it. Use hockey to have experiences. And I've said that to so many different people. You know, if you get a chance, don't just hang them up. Go play hockey in Europe. Go meet new people. Go have different experiences. Go widen your horizons.
Like, Europe is beautiful. There's so many nice places to see. And one guy that really kind of took that to heart was Andreas Ambiel. He's 41 years old. He is playing in his 20th World Championship for Switzerland.
Awesome.
Like, this is a guy.
Awesome.
He's like he's a Spengler Cup legend. One of my other favorite events. I think he's played in that tournament 283 times. Word is he kind of he created the tournament himself. But he
was there in the 20s when it started.
He started playing pro hockey in 2001. He's 41 years old. He's still playing in this tournament. Now, at this point, he's more of that 13 forward. I think they're bringing him there more for the moral support than anything. He doesn't move very well anymore for a guy that used to be the speedy skater. But that kind of shows you the dedication, especially in Europe, that this tournament means so much, that a guy wants to come back to this tournament 21 times. That's unbelievable. Like, we make a big deal about Sidney Crosby come back for the first time in a decade. And well, that's awesome. It's like, you look at Europe, and part of what makes this tournament fun is the European teams mostly stay together for year after year at this tournament. Like, you can look at the Swiss group and compare it to the 2018 roster. You're going to find a lot of overlap, and they're a team that's always in the medal contention for a reason. It's because they band together and they play well. And you might have a team of 25 NHLers, but you might lose to a team with 0 because that team just knows how to play together. And that's what makes this tournament fun.
I loved your mock draft at dailyfaceoff.com. Shocking, Matthew Schaefer first overall to the New York Islanders. I've maintained the draft starts at 2. Maybe you can make the argument the draft starts at 4, but we always talk about tiers. Schaefer's in his own tier, and then there's another group. Who do you put in that secondary group when it comes to the draft?
Yeah, for a while, I looked at it. I wanted to keep it a top 4 of Schaefer, Misa, Martone, and Hagens. Right now, I'm looking at it being a Schaefer and Misa top tier. I'd say Martone, Hagens, Frundell, Denoyer is a second tier. I love Brady Martin. You love Brady Martin. Oh, yeah. I'd say he's kind of in that next tier with guys like Victor Eklund, Jake O'Brien, Jackson Smith. I'm very high in Kashawn Aitchison. So I'd say we're looking at, in the top 11, 3 tiers. I'd say so much of this draft has been made about not being a super deep draft. I think the high end is still pretty solid. After that, you know this better than anyone at this point, that teams don't trade their picks in the top 10. And I think there's going to be so much discussion about our team could trade 3 spots down and get some more assets. That doesn't happen. That's not alluring to teams, especially this year where it isn't going to be a ton of high-end talent. If you want a lot of picks, you want them next year when you've got Gavin McKenna and just all the pure talent coming out of that group, or the year after if Landon DuPont. You don't have that this year, and I don't see a lot of trading, but I'd still say like if two teams there of the Islanders and San Jose Sharks, you guys are going to be getting impact players right from the get-go.
So I look at this draft, and the one thing, I just mentioned this a second ago with Pete Blackburn, I don't know that a single player will, or even for that matter should, play in the NHL next season. Agree, disagree?
I 100% agree. Obviously there's going to be a lot of discussions about what happens with some of the CHL-based players after the draft. If some of them decide to go play college, things like that. And, could James Haggins with his hockey IQ play in the NHL next year? Yes. Should he? No. I think he should still work on that, on becoming a stronger physically. Like Matthew Schaefer is probably going to go first overall off of a season where he played under 20 games total. That's the thing. Like you're going to look back and he's not going to go there. And Misa, all the connections of what he's going to do next year. So no, I don't think so. If there's one player I think could do it next year, and I might be the only one who agrees, but his work ethic makes me think it could happen, it's Porter Martone. And I know you're probably thinking I was going to say Brady Martin there, but
I did think you were going to say. I did think you were going to say Brady Martin.
I am a big Porter Martone fan. From being in Mississauga, I get to see him a lot with the Steelheads in Brampton. And the thing about him is, I feel like he's really underrated. And not to bring up the World Championship again, but we saw him play in the pre-tournament, and he was maybe the best player in the pre-tournament for Team Canada. Better than Travis Konecny, better than Macklin Celebrini. His connection with Celebrini was excellent. With Martone, I think the big thing, a lot of people are saying he's not a great skater. Yeah, he's not as high end of a skater as some of the guys at the top, but the way people describe it, you're making it seem like this guy has got like cement for feet. No, he's actually improved his skating quite a lot the last couple of years. Is it perfect? No. With NHL coaches, they're going to figure it out.
I'll tell you what, I remember going to, and it was the only time that I saw him play live that year, the Memorial Cup in Quebec City. It was the last hurrah for the Colisée. Kelowna versus Oshawa. Anthony Cirelli scores the overtime goal, last goal ever at the Colisée, and Leon Draisaitl was the star for the Kelowna Rockets for that Memorial Cup. And we all said the same thing. Wonderfully skilled, but I don't know if he's ever going to play in the NHL because that guy can't skate. We've said this about so many different players, forgetting that everybody's got skating coaches and everyone's got development coaches. It is no longer the obstacle that it used to be. Like it's no longer the shut door that it used to be. Like there has to be like a baseline of skating that you have, but like teams work on this all the time. And Draisaitl, when is the last time, Steven, you heard anyone say anything about Leon Draisaitl skating? Crickets.
None.
He was
Jason
so
Robertson,
bad.
too.
Jason Robertson's another. I remember watching him in Kingston. Every time he got on the ice, every time he touched the puck, the red light would go off. Like he would score a ton of goals. We'd all say, but he won't skate in the NHL. A couple of 40-goal seasons, like we totally. And that's the thing too. Like we totally discount the development piece in all of this. Like. Who was I? I was on the Morning Brew the other day with Billy Jaffe and Andrew Raycroft. And because we were talking about, who would Boston look for? They're picking 7th. And so there's the obvious Brady Martin conversation. We'll see what happens with the Philadelphia Flyers and which way they decide to go. Maybe they go for Desnoyers and Moncton. Who knows? But the one thing that we're talking about is drafting a player is only one part of it. How many times have you seen like, oh man, they got a great pick. Whatever happened to that guy? Yeah, the development piece wasn't there. It was a really, really good pick, but the development piece wasn't there at all. Like we tend to forget like there is still another step after identifying and drafting here.
Yeah, like we talked about Solberg a few minutes ago. That's a guy that has completely changed his game style in a few months. And so much can change depending on player opportunity. Like when you're a European player, you're usually playing in a European Pro League and you're not getting a ton of ice time. Like Lucas Raymond was playing more time in the NHL than in his rookie season than he was playing in the Swedish league the year before that. So things change a lot and summers can be magical for these players. They're still so young. They're still developing physically, mentally, all that stuff. And Sweden just scored Lucas Raymond. Good. I just wrote about him for tomorrow, so that's a good sign. But sorry for the aside there. Like you look at this and you look back at the draft success of teams specifically in the first round from last decade, and scouting has gotten so much better, whether it be just better tools, better statistics, better video scouting, that teams aren't missing on players as much as they used to. There are times it happens. In a lot of the cases, it's maybe they couldn't find a spot for that player, or maybe injuries caught up and there's a situation there. So a lot of the times it isn't like they were betting high on a guy and he turned out to be a total dud. That just doesn't happen as much as it used to. And when you look at what makes a player, like when I'm looking for what's a translatable skill, the number one to have is hockey sense. This guy's got to be smart, because they'll still find ways to be productive, even if they're not going to be if they're a junior goal scorer, but they don't have all those skills to be an NHL goal scorer. They might still find a role for themselves deeper in the lineup. And you guys were talking about Corey Perry. Like, this guy's one heck of a smart hockey player. He went from being an MVP in the NHL to like this grinder, make everyone mad, perfect piece to have.
Fall on goalies. Fall on goalies.
Hell, he might be a goalie in like 2 or 3 years at this point, the way he keeps changing his play. And guys like that who are adjustable but also smart, they're going to have long careers. And with me, I look at Martone and his skating, 2 years in his NHL career, no one's talking about that 100%, but he's also an agitator. He's smart, he's skilled, and he can be a good playmaker. You put that all together, that's one heck of a prospect.
Great family as well. Dad played, was a hockey player himself, so he comes from a great family and comes from a dad that played pro hockey too. Always wish all the best for Porter Martone, and James Richmond's done a great job with him there. Certainly have to mention that. Real quick thought on what we see tonight. We haven't talked much about it. Maple Leafs facing off against the Florida Panthers. It is now a best 2 out of 3. You were there with us in Sunrise. Based on what you saw there, do you have any idea what happens tonight with these two teams? What are you looking for?
I think Toronto's going to answer back in a big way. Having those 2 extra days off, I think, really helped, as opposed to just a night off and then having to get back into it. You look at that first period in Game 4 and all the penalties they took, and you can blame the refs all you want, but you took 4 penalties. They were deserved. And that kind of killed their momentum. It felt like they had to chase the rest of the way. You avoid that in this game, it's a bit of a different story. Like now, okay, Joseph Woll's coming off a good last game. I got to imagine his confidence is high again after what happened in Game 3 and then the struggles there. To bounce back and be as good in Game 4 has to be good. Austin Matthews obviously hasn't done a lot off the puck. He's been playing good defensively, but you don't pay him bazillions of dollars to be this star defensive player. The reality is the puck is going in the net more when he's on the ice than the other way around. So there is that. But for Toronto, when you look at the last couple of years, and I know the core 4 gets a lot of flack for maybe not performing in the high moments. For me, just as importantly is the fact that the depth had not performed well either. They were not scoring. This year, you're seeing, Max Domi's had his moments when he's not trying to put people through the boards. And you look at Max Pacioretty has been really nice for this team, a good scoring piece. Morgan Riley's putting in pucks in the net. Actually, both nets. He scored a few goals on Joseph Woll in Game 3.
He had a hat trick the other night. Friday night had a hat trick.
Not ideal, but so like the depth is showing up. So I think Toronto should answer back, and it seems like home ice has really mattered in the series.
You got it. You're the best, Steven. Thanks as always for stopping by. I really appreciate it, pal. Enjoy the games tonight and the World Championship and whatever else you have on that laptop and your obscure hockey watching. Let me finish on this one. What is the most obscure hockey game you've watched this season?
Lebanon versus Puerto Rico in person in Oshawa, and I watched the first 30 minutes in person, and then I had to leave. I was going to Montreal, and it was 0-0. I'm like, okay, whatever. When I get home, it's 9-7.
Whoa! They both pull the goalies?
Great question.
They put the mascots in then?
Yeah, it was. I no words for what I missed there, but in that same game, same day I saw Greece versus Jamaica, and Giovanni Smith was playing for Greece, and
way,
or Jamaica.
Yeah,
and then Greece had there was a Dallas Stars prospect. I'm drawing a blank. It was a defenseman in college, and it was actually really good quality hockey. But there was 100-something penalty minutes.
Oh boy!
One guy got kicked out for making fun of the referee's mustache, and another player got kicked out, took his jersey off, and put a new jersey on. Tried to go on the ice, and I just see the ref.
Bobby Valentine style.
Yeah. So, and the refs just looking like, well, what did you just do? But it was a great hockey game. Like, it was awesome. Like, they were trying to kill each other. It was a 3-hour hockey game. It was great. It was an endurance game, but those are the ones I'd pick.
I love that. That's the highlight of our talk. I love it. You are the best, pal. Keep watching. Keep loving it. We'll catch up soon.
Yeah, thanks so much.
There is the great Steven Ellis from Daily Faceoff, covering the prospects, covering the Toronto Maple Leafs Florida Panthers series, covering the World Championships, and Puerto Rico and Lebanon and Greece and Jamaica and whatever comes across his laptop. All right, a couple of games to mention here, but as we wrap up the program today, the sheet is powered, as you well know, by FanDuel. That is the home of the 7-game parlay. Make every moment more on FanDuel. FanDuel, proud to connect fans to the major sports moments that matter to them. And a pair of games tonight, as you well know, starting at 7 o'clock Eastern in Toronto. It is the Florida Panthers facing off against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Craig Berube, Toronto head coach, saying there will be some game time decisions, but not injury related. This will be Joseph Wall and Sergei Bobrovsky. Evan Rodriguez out, by the way. Jesper Boqvist is in for the Florida Panthers there. And then, can they do it? Can they do it and be tucked away? Stuart Skinner facing off against Aiden Hill. It is the Edmonton Oilers facing off against the Vegas Golden Knights. That one goes at 9:30 Eastern. So all things being equal here, we could have like the perfect time stagger, Zach. And I want to turn the recreation over to you to conclude today. What are you at Greta tonight? Is it a Greta night for you?
Yep, Greta night,
Okay,
pregame
plug
at
away.
6 p.m. Pregame
Plug
at Greta
away.
Bar YYZ, 590 King Street West, downtown Toronto.
Okay.
Starts at 6 p.m. until about 6:45, 6:50, and then watch along with us there. And then live after dark in person. And Jay Rosehill announced on Leafs Morning Take, and I found out because I was watching live, that he will also be on After Dark tonight. So there you go.
Oh,
Yes.
nice to know what's happening on your show and find out on another show what's going on your show.
I was watching and I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Oh,
I got
I guess
no
booked a
issue
guest.
with that, but nice.
All right,
Sick.
whatever.
Makes my
Blame
life
show.
easier.
Whatever.
Yeah.
That's okay. Well, I don't know what to say to you, but like momentum, although I don't believe in it from game to game whatsoever, but like what we saw in Florida between these two teams is enough to fill, any Leafs fan with doubt. But we shall see. Maybe this is just a homer series, and if it is, that bodes well for your team. But as I was saying to you before the show, the one thing we can be sure of is no matter what happens tonight, there will be an overreaction, either positive or negative. No one will see this game as it actually is. Like, no one will see the outcome as it actually is. It will be to the extreme either way. It's like they used to say about, here comes pretentious comment, 2 million from me. It's like how they used to describe Winston Churchill. He's like everybody else, only more so. The Toronto Maple Leafs are like every other hockey team, only more so. I hope it's okay for you tonight, Zach. I hope it's okay. Your mother and I worry about you, Zach. Your mother and I worry about you greatly.
So quickly on it, I don't want to spend forever on it, but I think if the games were flipped in Florida, Leafs fans would feel much better about themselves going into this game tonight. First of all, just because of the way they happened. Second, just because I'm going to put this out there so that people can't say like, oh, look at this guy going back. I'm going to say this. If they win tonight, they have a good chance of winning. They still may lose, but they have a good chance of winning. If they lose tonight, it's over. I don't know if they will lose in 6. I don't know if they lose in 7. But if they lose tonight, it's over. That's my thought on this. It's just that's it. That's the pessimist as well in me.
Finish this sentence for me. Here's how we're going to end the show. Finish this sentence for me. Spoken like a true Leafs fan.
Leafs fan?
Yes. Thanks, Zach. Good luck tonight. Have fun, pal. Have fun at Greta. Great spots. Go check Zach.
Yes.
Who's going to be? By the way, who's going to be there with you tonight?
Alberga and Vic. Yeah.
Alberga and Vic. Okay, awesome. Say hi to the boys for me. Okay, you be good. And thanks to Pete Blackburn from What Chaos for stopping by. Check that podcast out live every day, Monday to Friday on YouTube at the What Chaos YouTube page. Also, wherever you get your podcasts. Also, want to remind you to check out Up Close with Stephen Brunton, that conversation with Jim Rutherford. As Pete said, like anytime Jim Rutherford's near a microphone, it is always full value. Some really interesting things in this one about why he left Pittsburgh. Some conversations about handling superstars. And it's one of those, I wish I had my Jim Rutherford decoder ring on, but I think a lot of it you can read in between the lines on what he's talking about when dealing with players like Sidney Crosby in Pittsburgh, and also Jim Rutherford on what happened this season with the Vancouver Canucks, and so much more. And there's like old stories about, when he played in Hamilton, even before he started his pro career. And there's stories about him, joining the Montreal Junior Canadiens for their Memorial Cup run, things like that. Like just some really great old stories from Jim Rutherford. It's a great podcast. And thanks to the great Steven Ellis for stopping by as well to talk about the World Championships and the draft as well. And thanks to you for watching, for listening, or being in the chat. We all appreciate it here. We're back tomorrow on the program here at 3 o'clock Eastern for the Sheet once again. In the meantime, enjoy the games tonight. See what happens. Should be interesting. Talk about it all tomorrow on the Sheet. Have a great day. If you enjoyed that video, and we certainly hope that you do, please hit the subscribe button right there here at Daily Faceoff. I will put this lineup up against any hockey lineup anywhere. It all gets underway at 9 o'clock Eastern with Morning Cup of Hockey. That is Johnny Lazarus. That is Colby Cohen. Then at noon, it's DFO Live. And then 3 o'clock Eastern, The Sheet. Get caught up on everything in hockey.